This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 411 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pantellaresco. I write stuff and podcasts too, and today...
Whoa. Slow down there, Scooter. One thing that you're gonna realize is that tonight, your show is my show. That's right, all y'all out there. You ain't gonna hear the same dog and pony show tonight. It ain't happening. Oh, excuse me. Did I forget to introduce myself? Hey, I'm Bryce Kreed. I will be your MC for this evening. Now, you might not know the name Bryce Kreed, and lucky for your ass, you don't. I'm the guy that the monsters fear. I'm the one that the shadows quake for. I'm the one that kills what lives under your bed. That's right. Now this cat Brian Tan, he's just a blood sack that I allow to tell my story. When you've been doing it for as long as I have, sometimes you just gotta get shit out. So he's coming up on Chuck Woolery's little show here, and I guess they figured that they were gonna do things their way. What neither one of them seem to understand is that when it comes to my story, I tells that shit my way. And don't nobody tell me any different. So, a little bit about me. I was born in Nigeria, 1679. Now you may be looking to ask yourself, well, Mr. Kreed, if you was born in 1679, how can that be when it's 2020? Well, if it isn't obvious by now, I guess I'll just sort of slow it down for you nice and easy, like snot rolling down an ice hill. My name is Bryce Kreed, and I'm a vampire. I've been as such since, early 1700s. Probably say about, I was born 1679, so that would make it about I don't remember. It's been so damn long. Do the math. The bottom line is, I've been kicking ass and taking lives for a very long time. At least 200 years. And I am damn good at what I do. They write books about cats like me. Why? Because I'm the trendsetter. I'm the gold standard. It's just now you finally get to hear my story. Now, of course, Brian sort of do some embellishments along here and there. It happens. You know, he's a writer. He does that. So what you're gonna hear in his first reading of my story is this piece of shit Taylor Mandrake trying to talk about some shit that I pulled up in Vancouver. When? I ain't telling you all that. I've already risked your life enough just letting you know what I am. But I'll tell you this, it is one fuck all of a good story. So this is Brian Tan reading The Vancouver Affair, one of the early chapters in my story, The Enforcer. Check it out.
Prologue. The Vancouver Affair. Master Mandrake. The servant entered the study meekly, and spoke with an even, professional tone. His pale, sickly skin enveloped his emaciated frame. His slick-back blonde hair pulled tight against the skin on his head to the point of pulling his eyebrows upward permanently. His emotionless gray eyes did not hide the fear and respect for his master. "Yes, Rollo, what is it?" his master asked. His tailor-made navy blue suit with white shirt and blue tie were the highest quality money could buy. His face hard, cold and pale, and his own blonde hair short on the sides and in the back, with a single strand of hair hung down his forehead. "Master, I have a call for you on the private line. It has been encrypted," Rollo replied. "And, Rollo, who is it?" Mandrake asked in an irritable tone. "It is Mistress Enya Blake of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Master," Rollo said. "Fine, Rollo, thank you," Mandrake said. After the doors were closed, Mandrake pressed the button on the telephone receiver to bring the call to his office. "Mistress Blake, this is Master Taylor Mandrake. How are you this evening?" He maintained an air of authority. "Master Mandrake, I'm doing well, thank you for asking. I am most grateful you were able to make the time to speak this evening," Mistress Blake replied in a prominent British accent, her own tone of polite authority registered through the phone. "Oh, I assure you, Mistress Blake, it is no trouble at all. Now, how may I help you this evening?" Though Mandrake spoke politely, his eyes rolled in irritation. "I was calling, Master Mandrake, because I require the aid of an enforcer within your domain," she asked directly. "And which enforcer would that be, Mistress Blake?" Mandrake asked icily. He already had an idea of who, and it aggravated him deeply. "That would be your senior enforcer in the Seattle area, one Bryce Kreed." "And why would you need Enforcer Kreed?" Mandrake's voice became downright arctic. "I am having some difficulties in my city," Enya Blake replied, keeping her tone polite. "Ah, so I've heard," Mandrake replied. "Outright gang violence in the streets and, from what my sources have told me, a city councilwoman being among those murdered in broad daylight. I must say, Mistress Blake." "Thank you for your concern and your due diligence in this matter, Master Mandrake," Enya answered, keeping the politeness in her voice, despite the pomposity in Mandrake's words. "Yes, there have been unfortunate attacks, and I need the best among the enforcers that I can find to catch these terrorists and eliminate them. My defender packs are doing all they can, and though I commend them, the aid of Enforcer Kreed will end this matter quickly." "But not quietly," Mandrake retorted. "Bryce Kreed is a capable enforcer. However, his methods are not silent or subtle. The man is a brute that even the Neanderthals view as barbaric." "Master Mandrake," Enya began. "No, Mistress Blake, I feel that I must inform you of this. There are plenty of capable enforcers. You do not need some bull in a china shop." Mandrake chuckled coldly. "The man is difficult, rude, and has a monumentally high success rate among enforcers," Enya retorted. "To some, what he has done can be construed as success," Mandrake spat. "You have not heard of his latest exploits, have you?" Mandrake asked in annoyance. "No, I can't say that I have," Enya replied, maintaining her grace. "Oh, the Vancouver affair." Mandrake chuckled, hinting bitterly. "Last month, Mistress, I charged Enforcer Kreed to go to Vancouver, British Columbia. There were reports of a rogue nest of vampires violating the discretionary code. They had, apparently, had much leeway in Alaska and made sport of attacking during the endless night. After deciding to move to Vancouver to set up shop, sadly they were unable to be discreet. Their attacks were brash, intense, and put the news media on edge. I'm sure that you heard the reports of gang violence in Vancouver, yes?" Yes, I did, Enya responded. I sent a few initiate enforcers to deal with the situation. The young ones, sadly, did not make it. So, I sent Enforcer Kreed because I needed to settle this matter promptly. I implored upon him to keep his dealings quiet. Any sort of outright attack, that which the humans could decipher, would do me no good. Of course, Master Mandrake, the discretion of the Enforcer is quite important, Enya answered, stroking the Master Vampire's ego. Absolutely, Mandrake exclaimed. Needless to say, Enforcer Kreed found their nest, an old abandoned church to be exact. There were 10 vampires and 8 thralls inside. Enforcer Kreed entered at roughly 4 in the morning and exited a half an hour later. Somehow he recorded the event and sent me a video file of him walking away from the church as though it were an action movie. He strutted from the church to an explosion while smoking a cigar. The Master Vampire spat as the memory enraged him further. That is... Enya Blake searched for the right adjective, hopeful the angry master did not hear her stifling laughter. It is insolence of the highest order! I told him discretion. Instead, he made a grand spectacle the likes of which we had to spin to the media as a gang hit gone wrong. While it was easy enough to accomplish, it should not have been necessary, Mandrake barked. I completely understand, Enya said in an even tone. How did he cause such devastation with nearly 20 beings in the church? He had brought his gun and a silver knife. From what our investigators said, he strongly favored the blade. He never even had to exchange magazines. After severing their heads, he used the fire to scorch the bodies to ash. I must say, Enya began, I have to agree, much to my own chagrin, that his methods do have some merit. He is good at what he does, if only he would be more agreeable and can do it with more finesse, Mandrake relented. I can understand why he is so frustrating for you, Master Mandrake. However, I truly must have him here. I need some of that tenacity to help aid my defender packs. I implore you, please, to send him here. Well, he is a senior enforcer. He is able to choose which certain missions he takes and which he can refuse. I will, however, bring the option to his attention. That is all that I ask. I can have one of my charter, Enya began. No, Mandrake retorted. Enforcer Kreed does not fly, never has flown, never will fly. If he chooses to take the mission, he will drive. It is what he does, one of his quirks that are quite irritating, Mandrake replied. I see. Well, I am willing to pay for his travel expenses, Enya Blake offered. Indeed, Mandrake tapped his chin with a nod. If I may ask, Master Mandrake, where is Enforcer Kreed? I would need to know he is leaving immediately. Right now, he is heading to Rafferty, Washington, a small town. We have a rogue there that has delusions of grandeur, Mandrake stated, sounding bored with the discussion. If I may ask, why send the enforcer you have such disdain for? Enya asked calmly. Because a beast still has its uses, even if it is an untrainable beast, Mandrake said coldly. Indeed. He should finish his mission tonight. I will have a message sent to him tomorrow night to inform him that I need to speak with him. Today is the 10th, tomorrow is the 11th. You should be hearing from one of us before daybreak the 12th, Mandrake said. Thank you, Master Mandrake. You're welcome, Mistress Blake. Good eve. Mandrake hung up the phone. Rollo, Mandrake said, pressing a button on the intercom of his desk. Yes, master, came the disembodied voice of his servant. Bring me the parchment and my wax. You will be delivering a message to Enforcer Kreed tomorrow evening. Yes, master. Bloody prick, Enya Blake growled as she hung up the phone. So? A man with wild, multicolored hair, heavy black leather worn boots, blue jeans, and a black leather jacket decorated with multiple spikes and safety pins asked. Well, Mandrake says he will pass the message to give the enforcer the option to come here, Enya said. We don't need him, Enya. The Scorpions can handle him, the man responded in irritation. Skull, you and I both know there is more at work going on here, Enya answered patiently. It's bad, real bad, and I don't want to run the risk of losing you. If I can get Bryce Kreed here in Pittsburgh, that will help keep both of us safe. Enya, Skull began. My mind is made up, Skull, Enya said, her tone telling him the subject was closed. Okay. I'll have people ready for him at the airport. Skull pulled out his cell phone to make a call. He won't fly. He's going to drive if he's coming. Driving? Jesus. Skull smirked, heading out of the room. Meanwhile, in Rafferty, Washington.
I told you. That Vancouver affair is a good fucking story. And it's actually pretty funny. I can still hear them all screaming, no, you don't have to do this. No. You know, they always whine about shit like that. Thing is, though, Mandrake's such a tight ass. He can't sit there and just appreciate what I did. Do you realize how hard it is to go into a church full of cats that are just unloading clips at you? And all you got is a knife. Well, I had a gun, like you heard him say, but sometimes I just don't like using it. It's more fun to use Mabel, my knife. But it is what it is. Mandrake wouldn't know a good time if it came down, dropped his pants, and gave him a good time before uppercutting his dick into the stratosphere, if you know what I mean. Besides, he seems to forget that I don't work for him. I work for his old man. But it is what it is. But you know what? I'm not the only cool motherfucker that Brian writes about. No, not at all. See, there's this other cat, John Baker. And I'm telling you, man, I kind of like this guy. I mean, he's a little stiff at times, but he's kind of cool. I don't hate him. And John's story is pretty interesting. See, John was created for the sole purpose of catching this chick, Mila Hunter, because she done pissed off the establishment. But what John doesn't realize is that the joke's on him. And he's got to do some serious thinking. Otherwise, he's going to end up being just another bit of gum on some cat's shoes. You know what I mean? So, in the Brian Tan story, Invincible Heart, the John Baker Chronicles. And it's a spinoff of this one chick, Kendra Souter. She is a spinoff of her work. Kendra's cool. I mean, for a human, after all. I mean, hell, Brian Tan's just lucky that I didn't decide to make him into a meal. Because I'm pretty sure at his big ass, I could probably be good and full for at least 3 or 4 days. But nah, Kendra's cool. And the story Invincible Heart, that's a spinoff to her series, which is called The Permutation Archives. I mean, hell, Mila Hunter's pretty alright, too. I guess. Of course, I wonder, if I sucked the blood of somebody with that much power, what would that shit do to me? Now I'm hungry. Maybe I'll see if I can find young Mr. Richard Dawson. He's still bitching and complaining because I took over his show. Maybe I'll give him an idea of why he shouldn't be so feisty. You guys listen to this reading from the first chapter of Invincible Heart. I'm gonna go get me a snack. Here, Joshy.
Chapter 1. As soon as the light hit his eyes, keeping them shut felt like a better solution. The stab of pain in his brain from the soft fluorescent lights threatened to send his eyes out of their sockets. His lids pressed tightly closed in a protective embrace that did nothing to take the ice-pick feeling away. He could not feel his body, but knew it was there. 2 arms with hands at the wrist, with 8 fingers and 2 thumbs apiece. His legs with 2 feet at the ankles with 10 toes. He knew they were there, but there was no control of them. He could not move them, and he was unable to risk the pain to look as to inquire as to why he was unable to. So, he laid still. The knowledge that he was on his back was evident, partially due to the uncomfortable feeling of laying flat on his back and the irritation of it created. He longed to at least roll to his side. He was too heavy. He could not move. His brain couldn't muster its own strength to give orders, let alone make his worthless appendages follow commands. The idea to scream in frustration began to fight its way through the haze of weakness with a surprising strength that burned out as fast as it came. It remained settled in his consciousness like a splinter pushing deeper into his mind. After a few moments, he noticed a small amount of strength returning. Still unwilling to risk his eyesight, he tried to flex his hands and felt himself restrained at his wrists. The restraints, despite the soft padding engulfed him, brought him agony. They would not allow him to roll onto his side or onto his stomach. He just wanted to go back to sleep, but he couldn't while on his back. "You bastards, whoever the fuck you are," he said inside his mind, hearing 4 distinct footfalls and voices. The metal-on-metal sliding sound brought another wave of pain to his already aching head, and a heavy door opened somewhere in the room. He wasn't able to figure out where. "I think he's awake," a man's voice. "I think you're right." A woman now. "Give him the shot." The man was giving orders. "Dr. T. Dr. Newton said a full dosage should be once every 24..." the woman protested. "I know what Dr. Newton said." Dr. T did not sound happy. "But we cannot let him wake fully. Give him a full dosage, now." "If I give him a full dosage, he could develop an immunity." "Nonsense. I specifically developed the serum to ensure that nothing like that travesty back east will ever happen again. He will not gain an immunity in any way, shape, or form." "How can you be so sure?" "Nurse Denton, you can either give him the shot, or I will. I want him to remain docile, and that is final. I will inform Dr. Newton of this and take full responsibility. Now, do it!" With the raised voice came more pain between his ears. The sound of the door opening and closing again followed hurried footsteps. "What an asshole," the woman, now identified as Nurse Denton, said in a low voice. "I'm sorry, Sergeant." A pinch, then the spreading of numbness. His head became heavier, as did his limbs. The exhaustion hit like a tidal wave, and the idea of being on his back was no longer a concern. "Good. Sleep's coming. I'm so fucking tired." His throat was on fire when consciousness returned. The agony of thirst would not allow weakness to keep him in its embrace. Sight would have to wait. Movement was his first need. His hands closed to weak fists, reopened, and then closed again. The fists this time a little bit stronger than before, and each time after that, the fists had more power. Flexing his toes along with his hands brought sweat to his brow, causing the pain in his throat to worsen. As the pain grew, his body's strength returned. With his body's strength, his mind began to sharpen as well. What's my name? Who am I?" She called me Sergeant. I'm a enlisted man. Thoughts were rushing through his mind too fast for him to catch and make sense of.
and the frustration made his fist close even stronger. His fingernails began to dig into his palms, and a grunt of agony followed with a hoarse cry escaping him. The sound of the door came again, more clearly than it was before. "Sergeant?" A woman's voice. The same one. "Water. Please." "Of course, Sergeant." The instant he felt the straw against his lips, he claimed the plastic and sucked hungrily. The icy cold liquid was a gift from heaven as he took down each swallow. With each gulp, more strength returned, and each gulp was more intense than the last. As he sucked like a starving newborn to its mother's breast, he felt the prick against his skin and the liquid sleep course through his veins. So cold. So very cold. "No!" His protest was in vain as the clouds came back, swallowing his mind as he swallowed the water. He was weak again. "There now. Everything's all better now," said the mystery woman. "Now you just get some rest, and Dr. Newton will be in to see you tomorrow. That's a good boy now." With each step that the woman took to the door, the cold made it harder for him to know where she was until the door was shut behind her. Sleep was coming. The darkness in his mind was a threat to swallow him whole again. The memories of the last time the woman and her companion had visited him, they said the name, Dr. Newton. Dr. Newton was the reason he was here. The memory as to why he was here still would not come to him. The only thing he could think of was that he didn't like this. Being in this bed. Being put to sleep all the time. What was the serum that was always being used on him? No. The word was weak, tired, but the decision made the dark cloud lighten ever so slightly. Curling his fists into balls, his heart began to beat a little heavier. He could hear a pulse monitor beeping faster and faster as he kept making fists. No. His voice now stronger. He felt the cold in his body being replaced with a fire that he could not describe. His muscles began to bulge, his hands and feet pulling more forcefully against their restraints. When his eyes were finally introduced to the bare white room, it was blurry. After blinking, the bare white was more vibrant, as though he could see for the first time. Let me go. Sweat began to bead from his forehead, his hands in tight fists pulling as hard as he could against the leather straps that held the strength of steel. His rage grew. The fire and focus that with such strength claimed him began to fade. Slow at first. The intense ferocity of the liquid cold, the bringer of sleep, strengthened its hold on him. His strength left him as quickly as it came to him. His eyelids were too heavy to keep open. And then blackness came again. According to the security footage, it seems my course of action was just. Our Invincible Heart project almost got free of his restraints. Dr. T added sugar to his coffee, an arrogant smile across his face. Dr. Newton, looking at the charts in front of him, barely raised his gaze to his colleague as his head moved from side to side. My dear Nobu, perhaps in the short term, your actions were just. However, I fear your actions may have lasting ramifications. The older doctor removed his spherical glasses from his weather-beaten brow and rubbed them gently with his handkerchief. His salt-and-peppered hair, cut close as an effort to blend early balding, was tight and well kept. The thick mustache, also salt-and-pepper colored, covered the cleft palate scar over his lip to his right nostril. The mustache, far thicker than the beard counterpart, was obviously cut that way to hide the deformity. His white lab coat hung near his chair in the simple office with two desks, one for himself and one for Dr. T. Each man had their credentials decorated upon their respective walls in the office. The younger man, in his early 40s, despite his youthful Japanese appearance, could not help but sneer at the aged man in front of him. "If I had not injected him with my serum, he could have gotten free." Dr. T raised his coffee cup to his lips. "What would have happened then?" "I'm not disputing you, Nobu. Please don't take my viewpoint as criticism." "Then what are you trying to say, David?" "I'm simply saying, Nobu, that our friend's condition is unique, and we must handle it with care. The protocols that I have in place should be followed. This is our first successful subject in the last 10 attempts since the fiasco. Yes, you may have prevented an attempted escape last night by using your serum, which is a brilliant formula, by the way. But what if there is a chance? He will not build an immunity to it." Dr. T's annoyance at the point was now evident. "It is impossible. Mila was a fluke. It will not happen again." "If there were a chance," the older doctor replied, unfazed by the sudden outburst, "then that could be catastrophic to what we are attempting. Don't worry, you'll have your chance to study him further. It is important for us to understand how come he is not dead now. Every other subject has died except for him," T growled. "You're right, Nobu. And before we start hacking away at him, we need to get various samples of his blood. Samples while he is affected by your serum, and samples when he's not. And the best way to get samples of his blood without your serum is to gain his trust. All he will know right now is that he has been kept sedated. He will not know how or why. If we are going to do that, then we must be subtle. David." "Nobu." The elder doctor's voice had a harder edge to it than it had before. He was through trying to get through to the younger man with rational thinking. "I am the lead on this project, and I believe this is the best course of action to take. I understand that this is not the matter that you would like, but I believe it to be the most prudent. The sedations will be every 24 hours on the hour and not an hour before. We will do this slowly. When we get what we need, then you will be able to cut him open like a pig and do all the things you would like. Hopefully by then, we will be able to replicate." "Fine, David. For now." Dr. T could not hide his anger. "However, if you're wrong about this, you will accept all of the blame alone. I have gone on record in my reports stating that I do not agree with this course of action." "I know you have, Nobu. I read your reports, if you recall. I just ask you, with great respect, that you just continue to trust my judgment. We will have the answers soon enough." Dr. T took another sip of his coffee mug with a nod. "Thank you. Were we able to get any more of the EKG readouts before he was neutralized?" Dr. Newton frowned at the documents in front of him. Their incompletion brought an irritation that he was able to suppress. A smile spread across his lips as he turned the pages. "Off the charts," T said, pointing to the chart on the page David was currently looking at. Dr. Newton could not help but chuckle. He was going into full rest, and then his body had a sudden surge. Our hypothesis appears to be correct. The experiment and his body chemistry are acting in a symbiotic-type manner. We won't be able to tell to what extent or why until we get his blood work without your serum in his system. "How do you suggest we keep him under control?" T grumbled. "We'll send Nurse Denton to interview him, get an assessment of his mental state, and go from there. And if, for some reason, he's able to become a problem, we will simply give him an additional dose of the serum to keep him under control." Thinking for a moment, taking a final sip of his coffee, T set his mug down. "I think that is acceptable. We will keep him restrained, of course." "Oh, of course, Nobu. I have not lost complete sense of my faculties despite what you may think." Dr. Newton's calm, grandfatherly chuckle was like music in the air. And if he proves too difficult to handle, then we will take other measures. And either way, we will find out if we can replicate the effects of the experiment. I suppose so. However, if we can find a way with... My God, David, let us not go around and around on this. This subject is nothing more than that. A subject. The moment he signed on the dotted line for this experiment, he became property. Property of the U.S. government. That is all this subject is or will ever be. I must say, Nobu, for all of my students, you do the best at separating yourself from your subjects. Thank you, David. Dr. T stood from his desk and after pulling on his white lab coat, exited the office. Wasn't a compliment, Nobu. Sadly enough. Reaching forward, Newton pressed a button on his console. Marissa, send Nurse Denton into my office. Tell her I have an assignment for her.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all. I mean, I don't really have time to sit and read shit and all that. But as soon as Brian starts making audiobooks, shit, I'll listen to that just fine in my truck. I need more stuff to listen to. But I got shit to do, to be honest. I ain't got time to be running some motherfucker's podcast and all this bullshit. I really don't. I got meals to catch and I got cats to kill. I ain't got time for none of this. But I guess it's been kind of fun. Got a pint and got to introduce my story and you got to hear a little bit about it. If you're interested, and I don't see why you wouldn't be. What? My story's not good enough for you all of a sudden? John Baker's not good enough for you all of a sudden? I don't think so. You can read Invincible Heart now. Available in ebook and in print. And should be coming soon to audiobook. Pay more attention at randomevolvedmedia.com or some of the silly shit that Brian Tan be posting to know exactly what's what and when it's coming. As far as my story, the gold standard, the enforcer, I believe he decided to throw some extra shit on there. Path of Redemption. And oh, yeah, right. Sorry. Path of Redemption. Book 1, The Enforcer. That's going to be coming soon from Random Evolved Media. Stay tuned for that. But, I'll tell you, I'd start getting ready to pound down the doors of Random Evolved Media and Richard Pruitt now and let them know that you want my story. Because my story is the only, well, my own opinion, the only real story worth listening to or reading or getting involved in. Because my life story's the shit. Hey, I came to this country on a slave ship, lived on a plantation, became a vampire, and been fucking up motherfuckers for the longest time. The hell have you done today? Anyway, I guess I'll give little Joshy boy his show back. And, you never know. I might be back sometime real soon. Bye.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so in a number of different ways. Subscribe to it on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, you name it, I'm on it. Check out my books, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, Wonder God, MiraClePublishing.com, The Cloud Diver, and Alice Zero on Amazon. Links below. And, wow, I feel this was a special episode. So, guys, thanks for listening, and I'll be back next time with Virginia Caraway Stark. All right, take care, guys.
Josh. Shush.
Wait a minute. No one heard anything I said at all. What's going on here? What the heck just happened? What in the blue blaze?
Josh. Shush.
Let me help you tell your story. I offer a variety of audio services. I will narrate, I will produce, I will edit, and I will master your file so that it will be ready for Audible and Spotify. And if you don't want me to narrate your story, whether you want to do it or get someone else, I will help you find the right person for the job. All in all, I just want to help you tell your story. Let me help you. For information on my rates and services, please click the link below in the podcast description, jpantelresco.wordpress.com for more details.